because I'm one of the dudes that didn't get shot 9 times. Well, really, he got shot 3 times and lied, but he got shot 3 times, took advantage of the quick success. That ain't how the game designed. And when you play those kind of games, it's just time to expose you for what you really are, and that's a monkey.
I'm about dollars. Who the f is 50 Cent?
I'm deciding to f your life up. Rick, bro, I'm gonna f your life up. For fun.
We all know 50 Cent's been a hip-hop heavyweight for ages, and that he's clashed with pretty much everyone in the game. But one thing's for sure though, disrespect doesn't slide with 50. He's always ready to fire back, no matter how controversial things get. Some rappers even tried flipping the script on him. Remember Ja Rule? He trolled 50.
That's why, when you say the name, I say, who? I don't know him.
And as you'd expect, 50 hit back hard. And Jay-Z? He dissed 50 on stage.
I'm about dollars. Who the f is 50 Cent?
And yep, he paid for that too. Plenty of others have tried, but how did 50 handle it? Let's dig into it. Young Buck never really stood a chance against 50 Cent. He was once signed under G-Unit and was making waves in the industry, pushing boundaries and showing a lot of potential. But things took a turn when 50 sensed something wasn't right. Buck had started throwing disses his way, and that was pretty much the beginning of the end for him. Maybe Buck didn't get the memo, or maybe he just didn't care.
And Buck, I think that's over. I think that's done, but
What do you mean?
I think his career is finished.
Either way, it all really started going downhill when 50 did something bold. He played new G-Unit tracks for MTV with all the members of the crew present, except for Buck. This move seemed to confirm all the rumors floating around about them not being on good terms. People had been speculating for a while, but this felt like a clear sign that things weren't as they seemed.
And Buck, I think that's over. I think that's done, but
What do you mean?
I think his career is finished. You know what I'm saying? And it's because, like, his temperament, he won't actually get himself.
Even though both 50 and Buck tried to tell the media it wasn't anything serious, it was obvious something was up. Then, just a week after 50 publicly said everything was cool, he went on Hot 97 and kicked Buck out of G-Unit, live on the air, just like he had done to the game before.
So following probably a week from, I think, or a couple days even from when Shy was even trying to help clear the situation up, 50 goes again on Hot 97 and radio-wise and goes and immediately says, Buck's kicked out of G-Unit.
He went on to tell the Hot 97 crew, "You can look at that and see that's game all the way." According to 50, the problem stemmed from Buck's financial habits. He was spending too much money and complaining about not getting paid his royalty checks.
50's this. He immediately took this from a place of, to this day I know why now, that Sha Money was like, yo, we gotta fix this, bro. 50's tripping out over this.
On top of that, 50 wasn't happy with how Buck was acting, performing with Lil Wayne one day and then turning around to diss him on G-Unit Records the next. Things escalated even further when 50 released a recording of a phone call between him and Buck. On the call, Buck breaks down crying, begging to be let back into G-Unit, saying he was broke and didn't know what to do. But as everyone knows, 50 isn't the type of guy to play around or show much mercy in situations like that. Buck tried to fight back with a diss track, Taped Conversation, where he threw shots at 50 for making that phone call public when it should have stayed private.
Tape conversation. Streets want to know.
He was clearly hurt and trying to make his point, but by then, the damage was done. In an interview with Vlad TV, Buck also revealed that part of the reason for the fallout was because 50 had fired Shaw Money XL, the president of G-Unit Records, who had also been managing them. When 50 let Shaw go, he expected everyone in G-Unit to do the same, but Buck kept Shaw as his manager, which caused more tension between him and 50. After Buck was officially kicked out of G-Unit, his financial situation only got worse. Despite not being on speaking terms with 50 or anyone else from the label, he was still under contract to deliver 2 more albums. On top of that, he was drowning in debt. allegedly owing the IRS millions in back taxes. With no way to release new music, he filed for bankruptcy protection in 2010. That same year, in July, there was a public auction held at his house, where he was forced to give up personal items like watches and studio equipment. Then, as if things couldn't get more complicated, rumors about Buck's sexuality started to spread. These rumors were apparently fueled by none other than 50 Cent himself, who claimed that Buck was and had a trans girlfriend. Buck later addressed and denied these claims in another interview with Vlad TV, but the drama didn't stop there.
It's clearly a situation where they were using it to try to set me up for whatever reasons or whatever they was trying to do.
And you'd think 50 would just let things go after all this, right? Well, not quite. In 2021, 50 came after young Buck once again, this time to collect on an alleged $250,000 debt that Buck supposedly owed him. Talk about petty. According to 50, Buck was still under contract with G-Unit Records and owed the label 2 more albums. As for the legal battle between Buck and 50, it's still ongoing, but what's happening behind the scenes is anyone's guess. For Rick Ross, it all seemed to boil down to a particular moment with 50 Cent that rubbed him the wrong way. Or was it just a misunderstanding? Either way, the spark for their beef ignited after a brief run-in at the 2008 BET Awards. According to Ross, he didn't appreciate the way 50 Cent looked at him during the event, something that left a bad taste in his mouth. But here's the kicker. 50 later claimed he didn't even remember seeing Rick Ross at the show. Regardless, this awkward exchange would lay the groundwork for a feud that's been simmering for decades.
For him, outside of mentioning me, when things get bad, you mention me. It gets covered first. I get covered across the board.
By the time 2011 rolled around, 50 was convinced that Ross had picked this fight purely for the publicity. He said something along the lines of, "It all started because I supposedly looked at him the wrong way." That means he just wanted to compete, to make a name for himself, and he did. Whether Rick Ross had genuine beef or was just trying to boost his profile, that run-in at the BET Awards led to Ross taking shots at 50 in his track Mafia Music.
Look up at the stars, she like, honey, what a roof.
In the song, Ross threw a low blow by referencing a house fire at the home of 50's baby mama, Shaniqua Tompkins, which happened while 50 and Shaniqua were in the middle of a heated custody battle over their son, Marquise. That was a bold move, and Ross definitely came prepared with some ammunition for his diss. But here's the thing. Ross was stepping into the ring with a master of rap feuds. 50 Cent had a well-known reputation for stirring up trouble and never backing down from a fight. In fact, when he first responded to Ross's diss, 50 made it clear that he would happily ruin Ross's career, purely for his own entertainment. After all, he'd done it to other rappers before, sometimes for way less. From an outsider's perspective, it seemed like Ross was about to be in over his head. One of the first big rumors that 50 latched onto was Ross's alleged past as a correctional officer, a fact that was about to become central to 50's attack. The moment people realized 50 was gearing up to expose any skeletons in Ross's closet, it was obvious this wasn't going to end well for him. When it comes to 50 Cent, once he finds something to exploit, he runs with it, and it was clear that Ross had given him just the opening he needed. If anyone had warned Ross about dealing with 50, they would have said the same thing. Stay far away from him, because once you give him a reason to come after you, you're in for a rough ride. And sure enough, 50's response to Rick Ross's diss came swiftly and ruthlessly. He kicked things off by releasing a track called Officer Ricky, mocking Ross's alleged background as a corrections officer and painting him as someone who wasn't really about that gangster life. This track was just the beginning. Soon after, 50 started pouring time and money into a full-on assault aimed at destroying Rick Ross's credibility. He even went as far as creating a whole animated series called Officer Ricky, where he poked fun at Ross's past and relentlessly mocked his image. At that point, it felt like 50 was fully committed to tearing Ross down, and once he was in the crosshairs, it was hard for anyone to think of Ross without remembering 50's relentless attacks. For over 20 years now, Ja Rule has found himself as the target of 50 Cent's never-ending clapbacks. Their drama goes all the way way back to 1999, and it's been a wild ride ever since.
That's why, when you say the name, I say who? I don't know him.
It all started when Ja Rule was on the set of a music video, and one of 50's friends ran up on him and snatched his chain. Now, 50 Cent wasn't directly involved in the incident, but according to the story, Ja Rule later saw 50 hanging out with the guy who robbed him. And if you ask 50, this is when Ja started having an issue with him. But if you hear Ja Rule's side of the story, he claims this is when 50 decided to use the whole situation as fuel to start a beef, probably thinking it would help his rap career take off. What followed was years of them going back and forth, diss tracks, interviews, and plenty of hostility between the two. Even when Ja Rule finally admitted that he lost the battle, 50 didn't let up. He kept going, taking every chance he could to roast Ja Rule in public, as if the feud wasn't over. One of the most talked about moments between these two happened recently when 50 Cent dragged Ja Rule for a performance that really crossed the line in his eyes. It was last year on September 7th when 50 posted a clip from Ja Rule's performance at the 2023 BMI R&B Hip Hop Awards in Miami. In the video, Ja Rule is tied to a wooden post during his performance of his 2000 hit One of Us, in a scene that clearly gave off crucifixion vibes, with Ja surrounded by singers in white robes and a sunset in the background. Ja Rule, comparing himself to Jesus during the performance, was all 50 needed to kick off the trolling. Of course, 50 couldn't resist taking shots. He posted the video to Instagram with a daring caption. And because 50 never rolls solo in his trolling missions, his loyal crew, like Tony Yayo and Uncle Mda, jumped in and filled the comments with laughing emojis. But it wasn't just limited to online trolling. There was also a strange, unexpected twist in their beef. About a decade into their feud, 50 Cent and Ja Rule ended up on the same flight together. Surprisingly, nothing wild happened, and the flight didn't turn into a battleground. Ja Rule even tweeted about it later, in a lighthearted way, making it seem like they'd both moved on and there was no drama. However, 50 Cent being 50 couldn't just let it be. In an interview, he claimed Ja Rule was nervous the whole flight, and that 50 walking around the plane made him uncomfortable. But Ja wasn't going to let that slide. He later went on Vlad TV and dismissed 50's version of events, saying that he was actually asleep during the flight and didn't even notice whatever 50 was trying to claim happened. Classic 50 and Ja, always different sides to the same story. It's no secret that 50 Cent put his fame on the line for the game when he first joined G-Unit. This goes way back to 2004, right around the time How We Do dropped. That track gave the game some serious momentum early on, and by the time 2005 came around, things between him and 50 Cent started to get rocky. During this period, the game had a habit of dissing other artists and DJs for no real reason, and 50 had to step in and smooth things over.
He came back recently from overseas and was disrespectful, man. Like the way he's like, it's like he's feeling himself, like because of how well his record is selling.
He made calls to patch things up with those people, trying to make sure the game's budding career didn't get derailed too soon. But the real trouble started when the game wanted his debut album, The Documentary, to drop before 50's second studio album. That led to 50 Cent delaying his own release until March, and that didn't sit well with him at all. It started leaving a bad taste in his mouth. On January 28, 2005, Hate It or Love It came out, and tensions between 50 and the game were getting harder to ignore. In the music video, 50 refused to sit in the front seat of the lowrider with the game, showing how things were already getting tense. The real breaking point came when the game publicly said he had no issues with Nas, Fat Joe, and Jadakiss, all of whom were enemies of 50 Cent at the time. That was it for 50. He saw it as a major act of disloyalty. So during an interview with Ed Lover on Power 105.1, 50 went off on the game and officially kicked him out of G-Unit, right there on live radio. Jay-Z felt a bit disrespected when 50 Cent dropped his track How to Rob, so naturally he decided to call 50 out. But as we all know, 50 isn't one to back down easily. When How to Rob came out in 1999, 50 was spitting about robbing all his rap competitors, and Jay-Z's name made the list. At first, it seemed like no big deal, just part of the game. But things got interesting when the two bumped into each other backstage at Summer Jam. Jay actually gave 50 some props on the track, but he also made sure to let him know he was going to get him back for that diss. And Jay didn't waste any time. That same night, he clapped back.
I'm about dollars. Who the f*** is 50 Cent?
Jay-Z even referenced the diss in 50's come up years later on A Star Is Born from the Blueprint 3. But here's the funny thing, 50 was actually hyped that Jay responded at all. He saw it as validation, like his diss track was getting under the skin of one of the biggest rappers in the world, and that was a win in his book. In fact, 50 even credited some of his rise to Jay's reply. While Jay's response started as a freestyle, it ended up being recorded on his song It's Hot, Some Like It Hot. But of course, 50 didn't let it slide. He came back swinging, rapping about people catching feelings over how to rob, and even referencing Jay's famous track Can I Live on his song Be a Gentleman. Whether this back and forth was real beef or just some competitive bars, Jay-Z was definitely paying attention to 50's growing impact on the rap game. Then 50 dropped in Day Club and Get Rich or Die Tryin', and we all know what happened next. He blew up. Shortly after that, it seemed like Jay-Z wanted to keep this rising star close, so they hit the road together for the Rock the Mic tour. Jay was already at the top of the game, and 50 was the new kid coming up fast, ready to take over. But something odd happened during that tour. While it started with both of them, eventually the shows went on without Jay-Z. Not long after, Jay made the big announcement that his next album, The Black Album, would be his last, calling it his victory lap. It seemed like Jay was ready to step back from the spotlight just as 50 was stepping into it. The feud between 50 Cent and Jimmy Henchman all started because of the beef between 50 and The Game. Back in the mid-2000s, both 50 Cent and The Game were signed to Interscope under Dr. Dre and G-Unit, and they seemed to work well together at first. But things started to fall apart when The Game refused to take 50's side in his beefs with guys like Ja Rule and Fat Joe. By 2005, it got real when The Game was officially kicked out of G-Unit. And that's when things between 50 and Henchman, The Game's manager, took a serious turn. Henchman, who had a lot of pull in the music industry, wasn't happy with the way 50 treated his client. He saw 50 as a threat, while 50 viewed Henchman's reaction as straight up disrespect. Things boiled over into real-life drama in 2007 when Tony Yayo, one of 50's G-Unit crew, allegedly slapped Henchman's 14-year-old son, James Rosemond Jr., just for wearing a Czar Entertainment t-shirt, Henchman's company. This was seen as a personal attack on Henchman's family, and Henchman wasn't about to let it slide. Yayo ended up getting arrested for the assault, and the whole incident only made the beef even worse. Henchman vowed revenge, and from there, it was a downhill spiral. Violence between the two camps escalated. The most notable incident came in 2009 when Lowell Lodi Mac Fletcher, a G-Unit associate involved in the attack on Henchman's son, was emdered in the Bronx after getting out of prison. Many speculated that Henchman was behind the hit as payback for what happened to his son, and this was later confirmed during court testimony, showing just how personal things had gotten. Henchman's fall came when the FBI built a case against him for running a massive drug operation. There were rumors that 50 Cent might have had a hand in helping the feds take him down by playing informant, though nothing was ever officially proven. In 2011, Henchman was arrested for running a $10 million a year coke network, using his music industry connections to launder money and move drugs. During his trial, his involvement in Lodi Mac's emder was also brought to light, with witnesses testifying that Henchman had ordered the hit as revenge for the assault on his son. By 2013, Henchman was sentenced to life in prison for his drug operation and his role in Lodi Mac's emder. This whole saga just shows how far 50 is willing to go when he feels disrespected, whether it's in the rap game or the streets.